My upbringing is kind of a mix between living both in Korea as well as many different army bases and stuff like that in the US. Grew up kind of going back and forth from Korea to the States and a little bit of Germany as well too. My dad was in the army, Korean, but in the US Army. Finally settled more towards high school in Memphis. I came to Korea in 2003, right after I graduated university, and I turned 21 here, and I had my entire adult life in Korea. For me, my Korean American story is as an expat living in Korea. I have a different experience than I would say most people that are Korean American living still stateside. We went to a lot of the military schools and the private schools. I mean, there's so many international schools in Korea. It's hard to keep track of those early years because we were always transferring and trying to get our credits to move along with us. And that was always a little bit difficult, but in the end, it was fine. I mean, it was kind of obvious that we were Korean, but I don't think I realized it until I was about 11 or 12. Like in eighth grade is kind of when it hit me that I was Korean. Because up until that point, international schools and military schools, you're always with people of mixed races and mixed cultures. Especially international schools in Korea, like half of the kids were other Korean Americans and the other were military kids. And so we all just kind of thought this was normal. The whole idea of racism really wasn't a thing at that age. And I feel like elementary school kids don't really show that way. But eighth grade was a shocker because my dad just retired. We decided to live in Memphis, like live in Memphis. And eighth grade was weird just because it was the first time that there was pre-established like long-term friendships and cliques among the students. There wasn't like a separate like cafeteria table for the Asian kids, especially down south. Maybe in California it was totally different where you have hundreds and thousands of Asians, but Memphis, my school, 3. Lots of chinks, lots of gooks were thrown my way. And I'm like, I have no idea what y'all talking about. Because like those were foreign slurs to me. The first time someone called me a gook, I was like soup? Like, because I just kept like kimchi gook. Like I was like, oh, I like soup too. Like, oh, I like gook. And they got a big laugh out of that. But once I was aware of their intent, that's when I took a little more personally. Up until that point, didn't really bother me. But I felt at the time that even though I didn't care, I had to respond just because it got annoying in class. I mean, they just wouldn't shut up when there was a lull in the lesson. I'm just trying to study. All I'm doing is hearing just random banter. So, I had to hit a couple kids. And then after that, it was fine. That was high school. A few fights here and there just to shut people up from being racist. And then it usually left me alone after that. So I graduated when I was 20. Then a couple months later, I turned 21 as I came to Korea. The original plan was, since I had been not in Korea for 8 years at that point, so high school, university, 8 years, well, plus eighth grade, 9 years. So I felt I was getting disconnected from what I knew of Korea. I felt that my memories of it were fading. And so I kind of wanted to see how things changed. I wanted to see my cousins. So initially, I was going to be here for a year. And I had an uncle in Gimhae next to Busan who had a English hagwon. And I was like, well, he offered me a job. He's like, you can just work here. I won't take any of your money. We'll just, whatever the students pay, you'll take. I'm like, great, because that paid off student loans. And then I was planning to stay for a year and just reconnect, relearn the language, and then get a feel for it, and then go back to the States. And I was originally planning on going to seminary and become like a pastor for a Korean church. That was the plan. And then after a year in Korea, that changed because, it's one of those things where when you move to someplace new and you're by yourself, then the expectations of other people that they have on you, you start to think, do I want that? I guess a year on my own here in Korea just kind of made me reflect on, I don't really want to be a pastor. I decided to stay. And at the time, work was good. I didn't see any reason why I would have to go back to the States. I mean, if I'm doing okay here and earning good money here, why not just stay? And so I lived in Busan for about 5-6 years and then moved into broadcasting kind of accidentally and kind of stuck with that since. It's funny, I live here, but I'm not as integrated into Korean pop culture as one would expect. I mean, most of my friends are English speaking. I do have Korean friends, but it's not like they're the only ones I have. And the Korean friends I have an open mind. They've traveled internationally, they lived internationally, so they still understand that part of me, which isn't purely Korean. But Korean culture, I guess, suits me, but it's becoming more amalgamated. It's not as like homogenous as it used to be. I feel like the Korean culture is maybe blending and becoming fused with Western culture, right? So it feels like a third culture Korea now. Maybe Korea's catching up with me as opposed to me catching up with Korean culture. Korea is such a transient community. I am constantly meeting new Korean Americans, younger ones, and they tell me their story. I'm like, been there, done that, fine, but don't let that define you as an individual. The things that I experienced living in the States as a teenager has nothing to do with my life now as a 40-year-old. In the 90s, we were using Windows 95. Now it's 2022 and Windows 11, Windows 12, whatever. Imagine I'm trying to run my life on Windows 95, holding onto all that crap and junk and all the files that you built up from then. I don't need any of that anymore. And the operating system is too slow for me to run at the pace that I want to do now. As you level up in life, as you grow older, you got to keep upgrading your operating system. So if you have old memories that are really dragging you down or old hurts, I'm like, it's 30 years ago. Yes, I don't feel like I have traumatic experiences like some people have traumatic experience. I'm not going to say that those don't exist because definitely people have trauma in their life. Though I had traumatic events, they didn't define who I am today because I got in plenty of fights when I was in high school. But I don't know who those kids are anymore, right? I don't see them, don't talk to them. They have zero effect on my life now. Why should I give them a second thought? I keep the stuff that I want to keep and I get rid of the stuff I don't. Maybe that makes it chameleon-esque, but at the same time, it's just, that's what I'm proud of, is just that I've learned to let go of the past and just more live in the present. And even though I am a Korean American, it's not all I am. You know, I think some people are kind of wrapped up in that, especially if you live in the States. Maybe you're reminded about that every single day. Maybe you meet people who are constantly reminding you of your otherness. That's not going to last forever. That's going to change as you grow yourself. The only way that lasts forever is if you don't change who you are. So if you want to grow, then either get new friends, leave them behind, don't care about what they say, find new groups, because you don't have to stay where you are, So if you want to grow, then expand and get rid of the junk. My name is Denny Hong, and this is my Korean American story.